I never imagined a homeless girl could change my life and my daughter's forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The rain was pouring like 1,000 heartbreaks, each drop heavy with despair. I watched from my window, a hidden voyeur in our too small apartment, as people dashed past, their faces twisted in frustration, wearing their own misery like shrouds. And there she was, a girl with torn clothes and wild hair, standing alone on the street corner. Her eyes danced with something. Hope. Desperation? A wild spark that both terrified and captivated me. It was as if she held a secret, an ancient knowledge buried deep in her ragged heart. The world turned blind to her. Some people even spat curses, while others just avoided her gaze. But she stood there, steady against the storm, a flicker of light against the darkness. My own life felt like the rain, heavy, dark, shadowed by loss. My daughter, Lily, was 7, with a laugh that could light up any room. But after the accident, after my husband was gone, my laughter felt stolen. The weight of what I had lost sat like a stone in my chest. I wanted to save her from my pain, but every effort felt like pouring water into a sieve. I gripped my hands together, trying to silence the roaring tide of grief. As I glanced back to the girl on the street, something about her pierced through my numbness. My heart raced. What if I shared my pain with her? What if she needed a friend? I felt an urge, powerful and unpredictable. I couldn't turn away. Taking a deep breath that tasted of guilt and hope, I slid on my coat, stepping out into the storm. The cold bit at my skin, but courage burned within me. I needed to help. I needed to know more about this girl. But as I approached, her eyes lifted. They were the color of a stormy sea, swirling yet inviting. She stepped back, as if sensing my intentions. The air thickened. My heart thudded, each beat echoing in the silence that loomed between us. Then she spoke, her voice soft yet resonant. "Why are you here?" A simple question, yet it sent my thoughts spiraling. Why was I here? My breath hitched. Before I could answer, a deafening crash rumbled in the distance. A dumpster tipped, a reminder of the chaos surrounding us. In that moment, everything shifted. The ground felt unstable beneath my feet, the rain now a torrent drowning our words. She turned, and I instinctively reached for her arm, my fingers trembling. But she slipped like water, disappearing into the shadows of the alleyway, leaving only whispers of her presence behind. What had just happened? I stood frozen, heart racing, mind racing. I had an overwhelming urge to chase after her, but fear anchored me in place. What would Lily think? I turned back toward home, my heart still racing, my mind racing. What was destined to change? This girl would haunt me. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The rain didn't let up as I returned to our cramped apartment, the echoes of the thunderstorm colliding with the turmoil in my heart. Every droplet that hit the window felt like a reminder of the girl who had vanished into the night, a soft surrender to despair that had mirrored my own. I stepped inside, the warmth of our little home juxtaposed starkly against the chill that clung to my bones. Lily sat cross-legged on the living room floor, her tiny fingers dancing across the pages of a worn-out storybook. The soft light from the lamp cast a soft halo around her, illuminating the innocent joy that remained untouched by the darkness that enveloped my soul. I smiled at her, but the expression felt heavy, more of a mask than a reflection of true emotion. "Mama, look," she exclaimed with a bright smile, effortlessly capturing my gaze. She held up a drawing she had made, a colorful scene of a sun, trees, and a family eating ice cream. "I want us to go on a picnic. Just you and me." Her enthusiasm should have warmed the edges of my heart, Yet the thought of our idyllic picnic felt painfully out of reach. I squeezed her hand, the weight of my sorrow growing heavier with each passing moment. "That sounds lovely, sweetheart," I said, though my voice was barely a whisper. "Can we do it tomorrow?" she asked, her eyes glimmering like stars. "Maybe." I deferred, my mind racing back to the girl who'd captivated and terrified me. "Well, see how the weather is." Disappointment crossed her face, and I immediately felt the dampening of my resolve. As I watched Lily's spirit dim slightly, the guilt sliced through me. How could I expose her to my sadness, to the shadows that clung to me? I wanted to be her light, not her darkness. The next morning dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the emotional storm brewing within me. I tried to distract myself by organizing our small kitchen, but all I could think of was the girl's stormy gaze burning into my memory. As I stood at the sink, washing dishes, my mind spiraled. I could almost hear the echoes of her words. "Why are you here?" What was my purpose in that moment? Were the invisible threads of our lives meant to connect, or would they only entwine into an inextricable knot of pain? Suddenly, a soft knock broke through my reverie. I dried my hands hastily and opened the door cautiously. To my surprise, it was the neighbor from down the hall, an elderly lady named Mrs. Callahan, with bright silver hair and an iron-willed heart. She stood there, clutching a plate of freshly baked cookies. "I thought you and Lily might like some," she said, her smile warm despite the loneliness that hung in the air like a specter. I remember those days when my children were young. They loved these. Gratitude washed over me like a balm to my fraying spirit. "Thank you, Mrs. Callahan. That's really sweet of you. Just a bit of kindness can go a long way," she replied, her voice gentle but firm. "Don't forget that, dear. Sometimes we all need a little hope, don't we?" As she ambled off, I watched her fade down the hallway, her figure a reminder that kindness still existed in the world. I turned back into the embrace of our home, clutching the plate of cookies as if they were a lifeline. "Mama, are those cookies?" Lily screeched with delight, bounding into the kitchen like a beam of sunlight. Her joy stirred something deep within me, igniting a flicker of resolve. I watched her indulge in the cookies, each bite filling her with laughter and crumbs. "Can we go to the park later?" she asked between giggles, her eyes bright. "Of course," I replied, feeling lighter for the first time in what felt like an eternity. But as the day wore on, the image of that girl on the street corner lingered, her stormy eyes, her defiance against despair. Once we reached the park, laughter surrounded us as children played and families gathered, a kaleidoscope of imaginations unburdened by pain. I felt myself softening, enveloped by warmth, until I spotted a shadow under a tree at the edge of the playground, familiar and haunting. Could it be? My heart stuttered as I caught sight of the girl again, the same one who had brushed against my heart but vanished into the night. Unlike before, she was not alone. A huddled figure sat beside her, a sight that made my heart race anew. They were whispering, their voices indistinguishable, but the air felt thick with something uncertain. "Mama, can we go over there?" Lily's small hand tugged at my arm, innocent and oblivious to the whirlwind racing in my chest. "Wait, honey." I hesitated, my voice lost in the chaos that was now churning in my heart. What was I truly feeling? Had I made the wrong choice by leaving the girl that night? Did she need me as much as I needed her? And then, just as suddenly as my joy had returned, I felt cold dread gripping my gut. The girl turned her gaze toward me, and in that fleeting moment, her expression shifted. It was neither fear nor anger, but something dark-hair, a glimmer of recognition, and something I couldn't quite place. "Why are you here?" she mouthed silently, the question echoing in my mind like a siren call, as we stood on the precipice of understanding, each heartbeat a countdown to what would come next. The breeze carried the sweet scent of blooming flowers, mixing with the laughter of children as they played within the park's boundaries. Yet, with every chuckle and cheer floating through the air, I felt a suffocating weight bearing down on me. My gaze remained fixed on the girl beneath the tree, her eyes drilling into my soul like an unsolved riddle, begging for answers I wasn't prepared to give. "Mama?" Lily's voice pulled me from the spiral of my thoughts. She was bouncing on her toes, excitement radiating from her in waves. "Can we go say hi?" I swallowed hard, the words choking in my throat. I wanted to shield her from the uncertainty that swirled around the girl, to respect the boundaries of our own safety. But deep down, I understood that the pull of that unexplainable connection outweighed my caution. "Okay," I finally mumbled, my heart racing as we approached. Each step felt heavy, laden with unspoken fears and dreams that danced just out of reach. What was I doing? Would I be exposing Lily to a darkness I could hardly comprehend? As we drew closer, the huddled figure beside the girl emerged an old man, his eyes clouded yet sharp, watching us with a curiosity that clawed at my composure. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice hoarse but laced with a hint of kindness. I hesitated but then nodded, finding my voice. "Too just wanted to see if she was okay." I glanced at the girl, whose wrapped arms hugged her knees tightly, the way daylight descends into dusk, revealing both brightness and shadows. "You care about her?" the old man asked, seemingly taking my measure. "Yes," I replied, my bravado warring with the vulnerability that bared itself under the weight of his gaze. Is everything all right?" The man's eyes softened slightly. Not many care enough to ask that question these days. "She's been through hard times like many." His gaze flickered to the girl, and in his eyes, I could see the remnants of a story left untold. In a moment of courage, I crouched at eye level with the girl. "Hi there," I said softly, trying to break through the walls she had built around herself. "My name's Mia, and this is my daughter Lily." We're just concerned her gaze was guarded, yet within it flickered a glimmer of something: curiosity, regret, anguish. "Why do you care?" Her voice barely lifted above a whisper, each word laced with a depth of pain that felt tangible, because sometimes we all need a little light in the dark, I replied, my heart aching with her unease. As the words left my lips, I wondered if mine could shine through the shadows of her past. "I have enough light," she shot back, but there was an edge of fragility beneath her defiance. "Maybe you want to share it," I said, unsure why I felt compelled to reach out to her. My own heart was riddled with shadows, yet somehow I wanted to share that burden. Before she could respond, Lily leaped in, her shining innocence cutting straight through the tension. "I like your hair. It's so colorful," she exclaimed, stepping closer with each word, her small hand extending as if bridging the gap between our worlds. The girl's expression softened just the slightest bit, like a thawed stream breaking the icy grip of winter. "Thanks," she replied, a hint of a smile playing on her lips, though her eyes still told a different story, one of loss and longing too profound to share. A silence lay between us, heavy and fraught, stretching like a taut string ready to snap. The old man remained watchful, a sentinel of sorts, as if guarding their secrets from the cruel world outside. "What's your name?" Lily asked, her tone fresh and unguarded. "Calla," the girl responded, her voice barely rising above the whispering wind. There was power in that name, its syllables tumbled like petals in a breeze, carrying with it the weight of something beautiful yet broken. "Can we play together?" Lily's eagerness cut through the unease surrounding us, her outstretched hand poised between childhood innocence and the unyielding reality that enveloped Calla. A flicker of hesitance passed over Calla's features. "I don't think that's a good idea," she murmured quickly, averting her gaze. "Why not? Everyone here is having fun," Lily insisted, the inherent belief in the goodness of the world sparking in her innocent plea. "Because," Calla began, but before she could finish the thought, her eyes darted to the old man, as if he were the silent keeper of her answer. I couldn't help but notice the air thickening with secrets, a delicate tension suffocating the space between us. "It's okay if you don't want to," I offered gently, hoping to lift the burden of choice from her shoulders. "We can just talk." As we stood in that fragile moment, the sunlight glimmered through the trees, illuminating a tapestry of life unfolding around us. But just as quickly as the warmth enveloped us, darkness unfurled a shadow from the past and secrets yet to surface. "Maybe it's not meant for you to understand," Calla finally spoke, gaze veiled in uncertainty. Sometimes, you don't know what walking in someone's shadows can bring. Those words stole my breath away, a realization curling around my heart with a painful inflection. There was an untold story resting just beneath the surface, one that could either tether us together or pull us apart. As I looked into Kala's eyes, searching for a flicker of connection amid the chaos, the old man suddenly stood, the weight of seasons decorating his frame. "It's time we go, Kala." His voice was resolute, pulling her back into the unseen folds of her life, while leaving a scar of uncertainty in mine.
"Wait,"
I blurted, desperation wrapping my words in urgency. "Where will you go?" But before she could respond, before the stories that bound us could intertwine, they began to retreat, weaving into the park's overgrown outskirts, shadows swallowing them whole. "Mama, are they leaving?" Lily's voice trembled beside me, innocence undeserving of the pain trying to rear its head. "Yes, sweetheart," I murmured, my heart pounding not just in the fear of losing them, but in the knowledge that I was losing more than just the moment. I was losing the chance to understand, to reach out deeper into a world that mirrored our own struggles, yet wore a different facade. And then, as they vanished from sight, a haunting thought clawed at my chest like an invisible echo. What if this was only the beginning? What if Kala was someone I was destined to cross paths with again, someone who could unravel the threads of my heart and weave them into something new? Just as that thought settled, a small paper slipped from where the girl had sat, fluttering toward my feet like a message from the storm. I picked it up, my heart racing as I unfolded the crumpled note. Written in a scrawled hand, it simply read, "I'm sorry. Sometimes love feels like a prison." A chill shot through me as I absorbed the words, my heart laden with confusion and aching concern. Where were they going? What had she left behind? And what dark shadows hovered near her fragile heart, entwined with my own daughter's fleeting innocence? I clutched the note tightly in my palm, the uncertainty filling my chest with a mix of dread and dreadful hope as I made a silent promise to uncover the truth, one that could change our lives forever. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden glow that flickered like a beacon through the branches above. As the park began to empty, families gathered their belongings, laughter fading like a sweet memory. I sat on the bench, lost in the weight of that small note, its simple words rattling within me like an unsettled wind. "Mama, are you okay?" Lily asked, her innocent brow knitted in concern as she tugged at my sleeve. She hadn't yet caught the depth of the moment's gravity, yet I could see the spark of confusion in her bright eyes. I offered her a tight smile, fighting the swell of emotions building like a storm. "I'm just thinking, sweetheart. Let's find a spot to have our picnic." I tried to divert her concerns. Between the note and Kala's haunting eyes, I felt the weight of the unknown settle heavy on my shoulders. But as we spread our blanket under the fading sun, the joy of the moment felt muted. I kept scanning the park's edges, hoping to catch another glimpse of Kala's dying wish with no promise of fulfillment. The innocence of our picnic eroded under the unshakable feeling that darkness lurked not far from us. "Do you think we'll see Kala again?" Lily's voice floated through my thoughts as she munched on a grape. I barely glanced at her, more focused on the spaces in the park where shadows had curled back into their corners. "Who knows?" I replied, keeping my tone light. "Maybe she's taking a walk." The words felt empty coming from my lips, suffocated by the truth that clung like dusk. That evening, I tucked Lily into bed, her small hand grasping mine until her eyelids grew heavy. I wanted to protect her, to keep her safe from the uncertainty and heartache that intertwined so deeply with my being. But I also wondered if, in shielding her from the world, I was missing the lessons it offered, a balance I was too afraid to explore. As darkness enveloped the room, sleep came fitfully. I tossed and turned, glimpses of Kala's fragile spirit dancing behind my eyelids, while the weight of her sadness haunted me. I could see her standing alone, cloaked in shadows with only flickering lights of laughter from the park teasing her proximity to happiness. Finally, I drifted into a restless slumber, where dreams filled with muted colors and echoes of lost moments resolved into the flickering sound of a door creaking open. I awoke suddenly, heart racing, breath quickening, and looked around the dimly lit room. Everything was silent. But just then, my phone buzzed, shattering the stillness. I fumbled to pick it up, my heart leaping in anticipation as I saw a single unfamiliar number. For a moment, I hesitated, anticipation and dread warring within me. "Hello?" I answered, my voice wavering. "Mia?" A voice broke through the line, strong yet threaded with a tremor I couldn't place. It's Darlene, from the community center. I think you should know something. My heart sank. Is it about Kala? I could hardly manage the words as the weight of urgency danced through the air. Yes. She's in trouble. It's serious. The panic took root in my chest. What kind of trouble? Each word felt like a tightening noose, a prayer for the safety of a girl I barely knew. She's been caught up in something. A group. Darlene hesitated, the words draped with the heaviness of unspoken truths.
They're not good, Mia.
They're targeting vulnerable kids, using them in ways that it's dangerous. Kala has been trying to escape, but she needs help. The revelation unraveled a knot at the center of my being, revealing threads of despair. What do I do? You need to find her, Darlene urged, her voice firm yet laced with fear. She trusts you, or at least she did. Trust. The concept seemed ephemeral in this darkness swirling around Kala's story. But I don't know where she is, I admitted, terror cascading through me. Look for her in the places she went before. The park. The community spots. But you need to be careful, Mia. Don't put yourself or your daughter in danger. The conviction in her voice struck a chord. I won't let anything happen to Lily, I replied, though a gnawing fear gripped my heart. Just do your best, Darlene urged, her concern palpable through the receiver. Time is running out. As the call ended, a cascade of emotions washed over my: fear, resolve, determination. What would I do if I found her? How could I help her when I, too, was fighting shadows? I had to think of Lily, so innocent and warm, the antithesis of the darkness I knew lurked out there. I glanced at her sleeping form one last time, chest rising and falling in peaceful oblivion. As I stepped out into the night, determination coursed through my veins. I had no idea where my search for Kala would lead, but the note she had left behind had become a tether, forging a connection between our stories, sonorous with secrets too heavy to bear alone. Each step I took felt monumental, as if I were crossing an invisible threshold into the unknown. Battling the night's shadows, I carried with me a flickering Hopian ember, igniting as I ventured into Kala's story, unknowing of the struggles that awaited and the truths of our intertwined fates. And in that moment, beneath the vast expanse of stars, I realized I had become entwined in a battle no one ever warned me about. Tomorrow would bring its own revelations, a new layer of secrets to unveil, and I feared it would not just be about Kala anymore. As I reached the park's edge, a flicker of movement caught my eye. Was it Kala? Or perhaps something much darker? And now, the decision stood before me: to turn back or step into the shadows. The park was a different realm at night. The once familiar paths transformed into a maze of uncertainty, illuminated sporadically by weak lampposts that barely pushed back the encroaching darkness. My heart raced as I navigated the familiar spots that Kala had frequented, each step echoing with the resonances of our last encounter. Memories collided with urgency, a potent cocktail that clouded my judgment. Kala. I called out softly, half hoping, half fearing that the girl would materialize from the shadows like a ghost. The wind whispered back, holding secrets that were not mine to know. Just a few moments ago, the weight of responsibility had settled heavily on my shoulders, but now it morphed into a desperate Nadan urge to find her and safeguard the thread of light she had once offered me. I paused on a bench, my thoughts swirling as I hugged my arms around my knees, feeling the chill of the night soak into my bones. The brief interaction with Darlene had left me teetering on the edge, desiring to jump into action, yet subtly aware of the magnitude of the situation. How could I help her navigate the labyrinth she was trapped in when I myself felt lost? Suddenly, I noticed a flicker of movement a few yards away, a shadow darting behind the trees. My pulse quickened, a sense of urgency overriding reason.
Kala.
I called again, a tremor threading through my voice, punctuating the air with hope and fear intertwined. For a moment, silence reigned, but then a slight rustling broke the stillness. Out from behind a tree stepped a figure trembling, shoulders hunched, eyes glistening with fear reflected in the dim light. It was not Kala, but a boy who couldn't be more than 14. His appearance clawed at my heart. Worn shoes, a ragged jacket, and an almost palpable aura of despair seemed to cling to him like a second skin. "Are you okay?" I asked, the motherly instinct slicing through the layers of anxiety that had built up inside me. He hesitated, his eyes darting, a wildness undercutting any semblance of safety. "Just go. You shouldn't be here." His voice trembled, painted with the edges of fear deeper than what I had ever known. "I am searching for someone," I replied softly, trying to reach him through the walls he had built. "A girl named Kala." "Please, if you know anything I can't," he interrupted, panic surging as his gaze flitted toward the darker edges of the park. "They'll know. They come here at night." "Who comes?" I pressed on, my heart beating heavily in my chest, the crumbling edges of my composure threatening to collapse. But he merely shook his head, stepping back as if my presence was too much to bear. "You don't understand," he breathed, his voice lowering to a whisper. "They don't just take kids. They take everything." Before I could respond, he bolted past me into the dense shadows, leaving only the echo of his footsteps behind. My heart sank. I was no closer to finding Kala, and now the weight of uncertainty expanded, morphing into fear for the boy who had slipped through my fingers. Silence settled once more, pregnant with unspoken threats that lingered in the air. The park whispered secrets that felt too heavy for me to hold. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, every breath tasting of bittersweet resolve. And that moment of stillness, two piercing blue eyes emerged from the swirling darkness. "Kala?" I cried, my voice choked with relief and disbelief as I squinted into the shadows. The figure stepped forward. It was her. But the playful light that once glimmered in her gaze was replaced by a depth of sadness that resonated deeply within me. "Mia," she murmured, voice trembling on the brink of tears. But there was an urgency in her expression, a frantic energy that belied her usually cautious demeanor. "You shouldn't have come. It's not safe. I can help you," I said, each word coated with desperation. "Please, let's talk." "No. You don't get it," she whispered fiercely, glancing over her shoulder as if shadows themselves were closing in. "There are people out here who want to use you, people who will hurt Lily just to get to me. You can't risk it for me." A new wave of dread washed over me, the reality of her words striking me like a physical blow. "But I can't let you go through this alone," I cried, stepping toward her, but she stepped back, defiance punctuating her vulnerability. "Please," she implored, tears brimming in her beautiful blue eyes. "If you care about Lily, just go." "It's not worth it." Her words cut deeper than I could have anticipated. Raising a child in the harsh world of this cruel city felt more daunting than anything I'd faced, and now this danger encroached like a thief in the night. How could I balance the safety of my daughter with a fight for a girl who was slipping away? Just then, a low rumble echoed through the parka car's engine, its headlights slicing through the fog like a sharpened blade. "They're here," Kala whispered, dread painting her pale features. The fear in her eyes ignited something primal within me, a need to fight back against the encroaching darkness. "Kala, we have to go." "I won't leave you." But before she could respond, the headlights turned off, and the sound of footsteps approached, heavy and ominous.
"Run!"
Kala shouted, tugging my arm. The chase began, heart pounding, blood roaring in my ears as we darted between trees, the promise of safety twisting like smoke. The shadows of our pursuers loomed larger, and terror climbed into my throat. Everything felt surreal, the weight of untold secrets, the desperation to save a girl I barely knew, the love for my child merging with resolve. But in the chaos of our flight, I felt a sudden jolt, a hand clasped around my wrist, yanking me to a halt. It was the boy from earlier, his eyes wide with urgency. "Come with me," he urged, pulling me into a thicket hidden from sight. I looked back to find Calla slowing at the edge of the clearing, hesitation etched into her features. Go, Calla. They'll find you, I shouted, feeling the weight of my heart fracturing.
What are you doing?
She cried, eyes darting toward the approaching sounds of footsteps, straining against the tension of our shared fears. Just trust me, I pleaded. The boy pulled me deeper into the thicket, but as Calla turned to follow, I felt my connection to her briefly severed, a tangled thread stretched to breaking point. Time seemed to stretch, emotions colliding and merging into a mosaic of uncertainty. I felt the boy's hand squeeze mine, grounding me despite the storm brewing in my heart. Then, just as everything seemed to spiral into chaos, a chilling scream cut through the air, the sound ripping through the night like a haunting melody. A desperate cry for help echoed back to me, and I realized, as dread washed over me, that it was Calla's voice that shattered the silence and pulled me deeper into the darkness. Oh no, I whispered, panic seizing my heart, divided between the boy, the shadows, and the greatest fear of all loss. Would I be able to save her before it was too late? Or would I stand by, helpless as the very darkness I feared swallowed her whole? Stay with me, the boy urged, his expression fierce and determined. But as I turned to look back toward the path, a dreadful uncertainty took hold. The dance with darkness had only just begun, and the consequences of this fateful night loomed ahead, fraught with promises of change I never anticipated. The shadows deepened, consuming everything in their path. Would we all emerge unscathed, or would this be the night that altered our lives forever? The branches of the trees loomed like dark sentinels above us as I crouched in the thicket, my heart racing. The boy gripped my hand tightly, his face a mask of fierce intensity. I could still hear Calla's scream piercing the night air, echoing against the rising anticipation of dread. The weight of her fear clenched around my heart, and I struggled against the boy's grip, the need to find her overpowering my instincts for caution. I have to go back, I said, my voice a frantic whisper. Are you insane? They'll see you, he hissed, urgency pulsing in his tone. But the desperation in my heart drowned out his warning. I couldn't leave Calla. Not now. She needed me, and I needed her reassurance, her light somewhere in this encroaching darkness. I and the deep shadows. I made a choice fueled by pure instinct. Help me find her, I implored, feeling my emotions spiral into a plea that hung in the air around us, like an unbroken thread. She's in danger, and her life might depend on it. The boy paused, his fierce gaze assessing me as if weighing my resolve against the gravity of the peril lurking in the darkness around us. Then, reluctantly, he nodded, the urgency in his features softening ever so slightly.
Fine.
But we must be cautious. They're always watching. Today, as we crept further from the thicket, the oppressive weight of fear gripped my insides. Every sound felt magnified. Even the soft rustle of leaves seemed like shouts in the vast silence. We barely took a step when the boy pulled me back, nestled us both against a trunk just as beams of light swept the clearing where we'd been moments before. Stay still, he whispered urgently, his breath warm against my cheek. They won't see us if we stay quiet, I nodded, swallowing the lump forming in my throat. My mind raced with thoughts of Calla. Where was she? Was she safe? Had they already taken her from me, like shadows snatching light? Each thought ignited a spark of panic, and I focused on the shadows twitching around us. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that to falter now would mean succumbing to the fear that threatened to envelop me whole. After what felt like an eternity, the lights flickered off in the distance, and silence reigned once again, thick and heavy against the night. We have to move, the boy urged, his voice low yet firm. This way I followed him, my heart pounding not just for Calla's safety, but for the bitter truth I was starting to peel away. The darkness held dangers I couldn't have imagined, dangers threatening my life and my role as a mother. As we navigated the eerie landscape, the boy glanced back at me, his expression surprisingly gentle. What's your name? Mia, I replied, the response spilling out like a quiet prayer, a drop of humanity in this frightening reality. And you? Finn, he answered, his voice carrying a quiet strength.
Just stick close, Mia.
My name hung in the air as I whispered it, feeling its weight surging through me like a grounding force against the discord I felt spiraling within. Why did you run away? His brow furrowed as he considered the question, moving with confidence through the shadowed paths. Because I didn't want to end up like the others, he said finally, his voice growing earnest. The ones they take. They lure kids in with promises of a better life. But all you get is darkness. His words echoed through my mind like a rallying cry against the shadows whispering to our fears. How can anyone use fear like that? I asked, bewildered. An undercurrent of anger rose within me for a world that carelessly used children's lives as currency, but Finn's eyes held something deeper, a scar of loss laced into his expression. They don't care about us, he said quietly, glancing back at me with a mix of resignation and defiance. We're just pawns to them. I thought if I could disappear into the shadows, maybe I could slip through their fingers. Did I end that moment? The magnitude of what we faced crystallized. This wasn't just about finding Calla. It was about unearthing the truth lurking beneath the surface of a broken system that weaponized fear against innocent lives. I could feel anger surging within me, blooming like a newly ignited flame. Then, well, fight back, I vowed, deep conviction settling in the pit of my stomach. The road ahead was murky and riddled with danger, yet the thought of standing by watching others endure the same fate I feared for Calla felt like a betrayal of everything I stood for. Suddenly, a commotion erupted nearby. I heard voices rising, mingled with laughter, a low, cruel sound that sent shivers down my spine. Finn pulled me close, pressing his finger to his lips. Stay down, he whispered, holding his breath as we edged closer to the sound, hidden from view. As we approached the clearing, the scene unveiled like a chilling tableau before us. A gathering of hooded figures illuminated by a fire stood circle around two terrified kids, Calla amongst them, eyes wide with fear, the shadows consuming her vibrant spirit. The sight knocked the breath from my lungs. She was no longer just the girl I sought to protect. Now, she was a captive caught in a cruel game, a pawn held high above the flames below. I barely registered Finn's grip on my arm, urging caution as I felt the tension coil within me, but I couldn't pull my gaze away from Calla. At the center of it all, a figure emerged from the crowd. Dark-haired and commanding, he raised a hand high, his laughter twisting the air into something malevolent. Spotting Calla, I felt a wave of desperation threaten to engulf me. We have to save her, I breathed, but Finn's grip tightened again. No, Mia, we need a plan. Before I could respond, one of the figures turned, and I froze, meeting their piercing gaze. In that moment, I felt the void open beneath me, the ground tremulous and shifting like a tide pulled by the moon. Mia, the boy's voice trailed off ominously, his eyes darting between me and the shadowy figure, who seemed to be staring right at my soul. A chill crept up my spine, and I could only wonder, had they seen me? Would I, too, become ensnared in the web of shadows? The fight was just starting to unfurl, and as I stood on the precipice of a decision I couldn't understand, the looming encroachment of darkness threatened to swallow us whole. Would I emerge with the fight still within me, or would this place claim another lost soul in the night? I had no answers, only a heart pounding against despair, driven by the primal instinct to protect those who lingered in shadows, waiting for someone to light the way home. I moved to the edge of the thicket, my body rigid and my mind racing. The echoes of Finn's warning blended with the malicious laughter of the hooded figures, wrapping around me like tendrils of fog, each second stretching into an eternity. My heart surged with a tumult of emotions, fear, urgency, and an overwhelming sense of maternal instinct to save Calla. The sight of her, trapped with those cruel shadows, was more than I could bear. It ignited a fire that surged through me, ready to fight. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms as I fought against the urge to rush into the clearing, to snatch her away from the darkness that threatened to consume her. Finn, I whispered urgently, my eyes glued to Calla's pale face, we can't just stand here. We have to do something. Mia, Finn said, his voice calm, yet insistent. We need to find a way to distract them first. If we rush in now, they'll notice us, and it'll be over for all of us. I won't let them take you too. The thought of being taken, of losing everything I held dear, sent a shiver down my spine. Finn's blue eyes held a fierce intensity, one tinged with an understanding. I was beginning to grasp his past wasn't merely an echo of tragedy. It was a living reality he fought against every day. I don't care. I snapped back, my voice trembling with adrenaline. She can't wait. Please. Let's just go. But the firelight flickered, illuminating the glint of steel hidden beneath the shadows of the cloaked figures. I was reminded of the very real danger we faced. Finn's grip on my arm softened slightly, and I could see the turmoil in his eyes, a mixture of fear and reluctant resolve. Listen to me, he whispered fiercely. Distracting them is our best chance. Remember those rocks you saw earlier? If we can cause a commotion on the other side, we might draw their attention away. It will give you a chance to grab her. My heart raced not just from fear but suddenly from the gravity of his plan. It was reckless, dangerous, but deep down, I knew it could work. Shifting my gaze from Calla to the shadows of the forest beyond, I took a deep breath, steeling myself. Okay, I nodded, the desperation morphing into an unyielding determination. Let's make it happen. But you have to stay close to me. Finn nodded curtly, his expression shifting from reluctant to irresolute. Together, we shuffled back into the trees, our shadows merging with the dark undergrowth, each breath of the cool air trying to calm the tempest within me. I could still hear the laughter, cruel and cold, as we stealthily moved towards the rocky outcropping Finn had mentioned. On the count of 3, Finn whispered, positioning himself to create the distraction. 1, 2, 3. With a swift motion, we hurled rocks toward the other side, the sounds echoing like splintered glass through the night. Almost instantly, the vile laughter halted, replaced by murmurs of confusion. The cloaked figures exchanged glances, their focus shifting towards the clatter in the distance. Mia.
Now.
Finn urged as he bolted towards the clearing. I didn't hesitate. I sprinted forward, my heart pounding with a wild rhythm. The hope blossoming in my chest propelled me as I surged toward Calla.
Calla,
I shouted, the name bursting from my lips like a battle cry. The hooded figures turned, and my daughter's eyes widened as they finally locked onto mine, a flicker of familiarity piercing through her fear. Mama, she cried, the sound ringing like a bell in my ears, anchoring me closer to the reality I desperately wanted to reach. But before I could reach her, a figure lunged forward, pulling Calla back into the circle of shadowy forms, blocking her escape with an iron grip. I could feel a scream rising in my throat, but before I could react, Finn was at my side, pulling me back as chaos erupted around us. Go. Get her, he shouted, shoving me towards the firelight. I felt lost in the maelstrom of emotions, winded by horror and helplessness as I watched, unable to breach the distance that trapped her. The laughter returned, louder and more derisive, shaking the very ground beneath my feet. The figures were formed around Calla, their intentions twisted and malicious. The flames danced, illuminating their faces masked with shadows, revealing a twisted glee that froze my blood. Just as I hoisted myself onto the edge of sanity, the unexpected happened. One of the cloaked figures, smaller, less imposing than the others, stepped forward, revealing a flicker of empathy in their eyes. They hesitated, lowering their heads slightly, a sudden spark of recognition washing over me. Mama? Calla cried, her voice trembling. Help me, please. Run. Finn urged, tugging at my arm, but I was paralyzed, drawn to the figure before me. I needed to understand what was this flicker of humanity in the darkness. Mia. Finn pulled harder. Now, but the spell had been cast. I had already stepped closer, curiosity piqued by the figure's words, shadowy and yet so eerily familiar. You're not alone, they whispered, and in that moment, something deep within me twisted. What if they too were trapped? What if this child was not my enemy, but someone like Calla, someone who needed to escape as much as she did? With every ounce of energy, I turned from Calla, my heart in turmoil, clinging to the hope that by reaching out to this stranger, perhaps we could unravel the web of darkness that ensnared us all. Mia, don't. Finn shouted, but it was already too late. The fragile threads connecting us to safety were fraying. The choice demanded of me temporary but eternally significant. Suddenly, uproar erupted around us. The dark laughter faltered, replaced by a cacophony of voices as figures scrambled in every direction. I turned back to Calla in time to see her struggle against her captor. My breath caught as the cloaks surrounding the small figure slipped from their head, revealing a face more recognizable than I dared to hope. It was a face I thought I had lost forever. Mama, help. Calla's desperate voice surged through the chaos, and as my heart trembled on the precipice of revelation, I felt fate drawing me into the abyss. Everything I'd ever believed was about to unravel, and darkness loomed over us, unwavering and cruel. Would I save Calla and risk being lost in the shadows myself? As the surrounding figures closed in, I had only one silent prayer left: guide us home. As the chaos erupted around us, the air thick with tension and desperation, I stood frozen in disbelief. The face that had once haunted my dreams, a visage I thought lost to the currents of time, stared back at me, filled with longing and fear. Me sister, Lilamia? The name slipped from her lips like a prayer, laden with memories of laughter and the warmth of family gatherings now shrouded in shadows. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs, torn between joy and the reality that surrounded us. Lila, is it really you? I managed to choke out, fighting against the tide of emotions that threatened to drown me. Wild fear overtook my senses, but the flicker of hope ignited a fire within. Mama. Calla's voice reached a new pitch, desperation cutting through my moment of shock like a blade. Her captive held firm, oblivious to the emotional storms swirling around us. The urgency snapped me back to the horror surrounding us. I darted toward Calla, but Lila stepped in my way, her eyes wide with an urgent gleam.
Mia, no.
If you go, you can't come back. You don't understand. Let go of her. I cried, a primal scream erupting from my throat. I grasped the truth of the situation like a lifeline. I had to save my daughter first. But Lila, God, why was she here? Why had she not found me sooner, stepped closer, her presence hovering like a protective shield, full of more than just familial affection? It resonated with a deep-seated pain, an ache that echoed mine. "I'm not what you think," she murmured, desperation creeping into her voice. "These people aren't just evil." There I barely registered her words. The figures closed in, their shadows lengthening like specters against the firelight, seemingly emboldened by my moment of weakness. I saw Finn at the edge of my vision, fingers clenched, ready to act but held back by his understanding of the stakes. Time running out, I knew I had to act.
Calla, I'm here.
I howled, the world around us dissolving into a haze as the throbbing fear filled the spaces of my heart. A million thoughts flashed through my mind, each a frenzied echo of loss and yearning. The warmth of our home, the innocent laughter, a world before despair. "Mama?" Calla cried again, her voice thick with misty hope, clawing at the darkness like a tiny warrior. In that decisive heartbeat, I made my choice, the fragments of my past colliding with the present. "Hold on, Calla."
I'm coming.
I shouted, bolting toward her, still torn by the turmoil that bubbled beneath Lila's surface. What had she meant? And what was drawing her toward the cloaked figures?
No.
Lila grasped at my shirt, her touch igniting a different kind of fire, one of tearful anguish. "If you take that step, you risk losing everything. You don't know what they can do." But the darkness around us shifted, pulsating like a living beast hungry for my daughter's light. "I won't leave her," I breathed, determination flooding my veins, eclipsing every doubt. I lashed out, the bond of motherhood overpowering everything else. With a desperate sprint, I launched myself toward Calla. I saw the grasp of the hooded figure weakly bide its time, but suddenly tighten as I got closer. The pain in my heart for my sister transformed into palpable anger. I kicked at the encroaching shadows, screaming at the top of my lungs over the wicked laughter. But just then, in the swirling mess of limbs and cloak, I caught a glimpse of something that made my blood run cold, a faint flash of steel. My eyes narrowed, grasping the grim understanding of their instruments. Not just greed, not just capture. They wielded something far worse. Let her go, I gasped, shoving aside heartbreak. From behind, Finn surged forward, his protective presence like a balm to my fraying nerves, ready to tackle the cloaked figure grappling to overpower my daughter. "Mia, over here," he shouted. The urgency in his voice sent a chilling shudder down my spine, but as the figures snarled and shifted, I knew we could easily be outnumbered. Before I could respond, another figure broke through, stepping into the light, one hand raised as if in benediction. "Enough. Their voice resonated, laced with authority that sliced through the chaos. I froze, recognition flooding Menet from familiarity, but an implicit power that sent chills through my core. They lowered their hood, revealing a face etched with wisdom far beyond their years. "These children are not yours to take," they declared, and something in their eyes shone compassion coupled with dire resolve. But before I could grasp what it all meant, the ground shifted beneath us, trembling as if the earth itself contested the presence of these shadowy figures. Lila's eyes locked onto mine, an unspoken bond dangling on a thread of hope. "Mia, please, you need to trust me," she whispered urgently as her hand fell away from my sleeve. "I'm not here for what you think. I'm here to save you both." Just then, the laughter erupted once more, a sinister crescendo as the shadows coiled tighter. The sudden fresh wave of fear rushed over me like cold water, freezing me in place. I didn't just need to save Calla. I needed to understand Lilith's role in all of this.
Mala.
Calla cried again, and the sound shattered the fragile moment of clarity. I felt myself being drawn between two worlds, one pulsing with shadows, the other with the flicker of a dying flame. "Lila," the weight of my conflicting emotions threatened to choke me as the forest darkened, enveloping us in an unfathomable void. "Mama." Calla's voice echoed unbearably loud, pulling me back to her. And with that sound came the heart-stirring clarity that I needed to act. Somewhere deep within me, I made a choice. But as the ground shifted one last time, a jagged crack echoed beneath all of us, rippling like a serpent ready to strike. Time slowed as I reached my hand out to Calla. Lila's voice pierced the silence, but before I could comprehend, darkness surged forth, tenacious and unavoidable, as shadows swarmed around my daughter, threatening to pull her into the abyss. In that breath-holding moment, the final decision cradled within me. Would I lose everything again, or could I embrace the terrifying unknown in hope of reclaiming my family? And as all light dimmed into obscurity, I felt a strange warmth seep into my Bonisa flicker of interwoven destinies, blending sorrows and promises into a single, tenuous thread. The darkness swallowed us whole, weaving itself around my heart like a snake constricting its prey. I could feel Calla's fear like a palpable force, an electric current that sent shockwaves through my veins. I was frozen, caught between the smoldering ashes of my past and the harrowing flames of an unknown future, opportunity and lost dancing on the brink of chaos. "Lila," I shouted, desperation flooding my voice. "Why are you here?" "It's not what you think, Mia." Her voice rose above the chaos, a haunting melody amidst the cacophony of dread surrounding us. "You must believe me. I am not an enemy." But I could see the wild glimmer in her eyes, a maelstrom of emotions that mirrored my own fears. Fear that spoke of betrayal, yet carried echoes of shared roots, of a bond forged in the furnace of our childhood. "You brought this upon us, didn't you?" I breathed, unable to keep the accusation from dripping with sorrow. "And oh, I found them by accident. I don't want them to take you both." Her hands gripped mine, the warmth between us seeming to recast the moment in a frame of genuine understanding. Yet the encroaching shadows were relentless. They intertwined like tendrils of a dark vine, slithering toward Calla, gathering around her in clutches that whispered of despair. I tore my gaze from my sister and turned back to my daughter, my heart racing. Calla stood wide-eyed, rooted in place, as an overwhelming tide of sorrow rippled through my chest. "Advance slowly," I warned Finn, my partner in this dance of survival. His knee bent, crouching defensively, determination etched into the lines of his face, revealing a spirit forged in trials. But as we stepped forward, Lila shouted, "I'll only make things worse. You must trust me." Beneath my feet, the ground quivered again, sending vibrations spidering through my frame. I felt the earth shift, a powerful reminder of the forces at play and how precariously we danced on the edge of calamity. And then, like a shot fired through my mind, I had a revelation, a memory, half hidden in the fog of despair flooded back. I recalled tales spun long ago by Lila, stories filled with caution and shadows, but also flickers of light, a tribe of lost souls, those who wielded power over darkness and light. They could shift the fabric of reality itself, but the price paid would be unimaginable. Don't listen to her. A mocking voice punctured the air, the cloaked figure still gripping Kala's wrist with an ironclad hold. She is not your salvation, but a cursed shadow in this awakening. I'll do whatever it takes to save her. I yelled back, my voice thrumming with the weight of my promise. The shadows rolled in anticipation, a hungry predator invisible to the naked eye, waiting for me to waver. "Mama." Kala's voice trembled as the darkness pressed closer, swallowing her laughter, the music of her spirit dimming painfully.
Help me.
The chorus of chaos escalated, a cacophony of anger and sorrow clashing against the fragile boundaries of my resolve. I felt Lila's fingers slip between my grip like a whisper of smoke. She was right there, a lifeline, a tether to my past, yet caught in the tempest with me, her very essence glowing with unspoken conflict. "Trust that I can help you," Lila pleaded, desperation merging with sincerity. "This is not merely about rescue. It's a deeper bond, Mia. They hunt you both, but there's also untapped power within you." "Power?" I echoed incredulously. My pulse raced, and laughter from the shadows rose, taunting me, echoing through my mind. "They fear you," Lila continued, breathing as if her words would ignite the truth that lay dormant inside me. "But they can only pursue what they understand. With Kala, you are kin to something greater, a source of unimaginable light that can banish the night." As the shadows pulsed around us, and the villain's laughter danced on the breeze, a fissure formed in my heart, and within that rupture lay a spark I never knew I possessed. It entwined itself with memories of my daughter's laughter, the warmth of her innocent joy, growing stronger as I thought of Kala's spirit.
Nana.
Kala cried again, and, this time desperately, the urgency striking my core like fire. With newfound resolve, I turned back to Lila, gripping her hands. "Help me," I breathed. "Help us find that power. Help me reach her." And as we clasped hands, I felt a strange warmth begin to radiate in the hollow of my chest. Lila's face was lit, bright and burning in the shadows as I felt a bond between the three of us anchored in shared Clarissa deeper understanding emerging. But out of the darkness, an anguished growl broke through, erupting the very core of my newfound courage like a fragile burst of sunlight. "You think you can wield power from the ashes?" The cloaked voice sneered. "Then let me show you the true meaning of loss." In that fateful moment, the shadows lunged forward in retaliation, encircling me, pressing against my skin like chains forged in despair. I felt the warmth drain from my grasp, a sudden jolt sparking through the air as the ground beneath us shook with the force of a haunting grief that threatened to swallow everything whole. "Kala!" I screamed as I felt the pull of the darkness seize me, dragging at my soul. Just then, an earth-shattering noise erupted, the very fabric of our encounters fracturing, and in the eye of the storm, I caught a fleeting glimpse of my daughter's face, a flicker of light against the canvas of destruction. Panic took hold, ripping through me like a wild beast unleashed. Would I really let darkness take her too? As I tore through the shadows, propelled by unwavering love, I missed the anguished wail that ripped through the air. But when my hand connected with Kala's warm touch, all-consuming fear gripped my heart once more, and I realized, in that haunting moment, I wasn't only battling against shadows, I was wrestling with the very essence of despair and hope intertwined. The fate of my sister, my daughter, and perhaps our entire realm hanging in the balance. Then the earth shook violently beneath us, and I felt a vast, swirling energy begin to envelop us, a whirlwind of potential exploding into chaos, and I understood, finally, that this journey would bring not only unforeseen power but revelations that would change everything I had ever known. And engraved in my chest was the chilling realization: to embrace the light, we might have to delve deeper into the shadows than we ever anticipated. The echoes of chaos reverberated through me, a cacophony of despair laced with flickers of hope. I gasped as the shadows licked at my heels, their whispers like sirens calling, threatening to pull me under. But standing alongside Lila, in a moment ripe with danger, I felt the depths of a bond that had never truly severed. I knew that whatever transpired next, we were tethered by more than blood. We were entwined in a shared purpose. Together, remember? Lilith's voice held a current of strength. The shadows swirled around us, their forms undulating like dark smoke, but I could feel a new warmth igniting the collective glow of our desires for reunion and protection. Together, I breathed, squeezing Lilith's hand tightly. In that moment, I felt Kala's presence wrap around us, a fragile yet unbreakable thread anchoring our hearts. Her fear rippled through me, igniting the blazing need to reach her. Let her go, I screamed, the power of my love resonating through the chaos. In that instance, I realized the shadows could only contain me if I allowed them to. The fear had become familiar, yet now it twisted into a force, a pushing tide against which I could defy. Lila nodded, the old spark of our childhood igniting in her eyes. As she closed her eyes, I felt a flicker of energy pulsating between us, a flicker of something beyond our understanding. We can harness it, Lila said, her voice unwavering. But you have to trust in what's within you, trust in the light you've always had. It's time to confront the darkness, together. The laughter from the hooded figures intensified, echoing, ringing sharply in my ears as they reveled in our struggle. But I refused to let their darkness overshadow us any longer. I felt my heart begin to beat in rhythm with Lilith's, an exquisite synchronization that focused my intent, elevating it to a palpable essence surrounding us. Kala, we're coming. Together, we stepped forward, when suddenly a jolt of energy surged, pushing against the enclosure of shadows like a tidal wave. I gasped, feeling warmth envelop me, coursing through with illuminated purpose. The darkness pulsed, shook, caught off guard, and I took a breath so deep it filled with the echoes of every laugh, every smile exchanged within our family's warmth. It fueled my claim over the space, forging a barrier against the ominous laughter that filled the air. With newfound resolve, I stepped into the swirling energy, the tendrils of light enveloping me, intertwining with my memories of love, of Kala's innocence and Lilith's bond. I raised my voice. I reject this darkness. Your hold on us ends now. The shadows recoiled, as if my defiance ignited the atmosphere. Lilith's voice joined mine. We are not forgotten. We rise with love as our guiding light. The air sparked with energy, arcing between the four of us, Kala caught in precarious balance amid the swirling storm of hearts. The moment pressed on, the weight of possibility hanging like a thread waiting to be pulled. I continued to breathe deeply, finding power where there had once only been fear, recalling every moment that had forged me as a mother, a sister, as a protector. And suddenly, it was there, and ethereal warmth enveloped us, stretching outwards like an illuminating wave. Stay with me, Lila whispered, rooting our hearts together, amplifying the light that began to push through the darkness surrounding Kala. The laughter twisted into expressions of confusion, the figures losing their grounding to the energy blossoming within us. Kala, reach out, I cried, urging her through the distance, through the chaos unfolding. In that moment, the very shadows around us began to ripple, shimmering with the fear of the light we now wielded. Kala's eyes widened, her spirit sparking to life as she stretched her trembling hand toward us, illuminated by purpose, the light she carried coming alive.
Mala.
Lila, she murmured, her small fingers stretching like sunflowers growing toward the dawn. With one final surge of bravery, I reached for her, pouring every ounce of love and warmth into that connection. We will always find you.
And
As our hands met Lilith's, mine, and Khalees, a wave of brilliance exploded through the shadows, the essence of our love conjoining in an act of reclamation. The shadows screamed in agony, consumed by the light we had all summoned together. In a dazzling burst, time seemed to shatter and reform, enveloping us all in a cocoon of warmth and love. The darkness released its grip on our hearts, collapsing in on itself, vaporizing into the void as the echoes of laughter dissolved into nothingness. As the light began to ebb, I clutched both of my girls tightly, holding on to this moment like catching stars in the still of the night. They were here, together, safe. But just as I thought we had emerged victorious, a chilling thought broke through the aftermath. What now? What if they return? But Lila stepped in closer, brushing her fingers gently against my cheek. They won't come back. We've broken their hold, redefined our path. The power of our family was always greater. Underneath her words, I could feel the rhythm of her heartbeat, a steady reminder that we had dismantled the cage of fear and opened the door toward healing. Together, I echoed, relief flooding through me as we formed a small circle of light. Calla nestled into my side, her warmth pressing into my heart as I breathed deeply, savoring the smell of hope mingling with the scent of fresh earth. Together, Lila reaffirmed, her strength resonating with the echoes of our shared laughter, woven with the understanding of how we would forge the future ahead. And as I looked up into the vast night sky now crawling with stars, I felt the promise of brighter tomorrows nestle into the collective pulse of our hearts. We had faced shadows, embraced the light, and emerged transformed. In that space of infinite possibility, I felt a whisper of laughter brush through the cool night air, a reminder that, together, we would always be the light in each other's darkness. And no shadows could ever claim us again. Love, I murmured softly, is the strongest shield of all. The dawn would come, invigorating and powerful, and with it, the assurance that we would stand as one forever unbreakable, and with the golden rays rising on the horizon, brighter than the past we had emerged from, my heart brimmed with faith, courage, and love. Family was not just blood, it was a choice born from connection. We would fight to protect it always. As the first light illuminated our small circle, I whispered into the rising dawn, where there's love, there's always hope.